Well, I didn't realize a WebBot report prediction would be coming through again so soon. Once again, the same report I just talked about with the bridge thing. Same report, September IDR, September 2015 IDR report. And I don't know how much I copied out of this report to do my summary on, because I don't copy everything. But I'm pretty sure I mentioned at least floods and things like that. And there was other interesting things that I probably focused on more than floods. But I want to show you something real quick, if you don't mind, which just happened 10/16/2015. This was posted YouTube. This was in California, I believe. Let me move out of the way. Bakersfield, yep. Good old Bakersfield. Now, it's another scene. You can see how bad it was. This was on an interstate, or either an interstate or a highway, major highway. Out of literally nowhere, massive rain and flash flooding happened. I mean, this is going up, in this picture, above the car tire, barely, or just almost touching it on that car in front of them. But I mean, you can see this camper back here. It's like where the door is in the background near that camper. And again, this front tire is pretty much covered on this silver car. And look at the pickup truck behind me over here. You can't even really see the tire. So this came out of nowhere. In the video, people are kind of freaking out. And I will post a link to the video so you can watch it. It's about 2 minutes and something long. But I searched the WebBot report September. I didn't even get into October. Only because I wanted to show you what the September immediacy data report said. This happened and was posted yesterday. So granted, did this happen a few days ago and they posted it yesterday? Perhaps. I'm not exactly sure specifically, but they posted it. So it was very recent. And I counted the word flood or floods or flooding 22 times. That word was in the WebBot report from September. How could it have known there would be these kind of floodings and things? Now, I'm going to start by reading this to you, as you can see. Let me move my little camera thing out of the way. The data sets are accruing in support for a multiple decades-long process of the changing planet to reconfigure large parts of both North America and Asia, specifically central and northwestern China. The transformation process is described as involving drought, floods, earthquake, fires, monsoon, etc. So let me scroll down to the next one. And you can see this next one. The data brings in language about floods causing the need for military rescues along almost all eastern coasts. This includes the eastern seaboard of North America and South America. We also have flooding as a major military rescue opportunities along the coast of China. The USA POP subset includes some of the data details about the flooding situation that develops in winter northern hemisphere. So granted, we're coming into winter here shortly. And seems to continue in the spring. Japan is also hit hard by further storms of historic proportions, but in the main, the largest level of damage suggested by the data appears to be in China. Next word. Flooding. Next. In the midst of the media system failure, the continent bears the brunt of several superstorms. The flooding and the temperatures are showing as being horrifically cold and armpit deep in the streets. For the flooding, which is both from storm surge and from massive, truly massive, unseen before, levels of rain arriving ahead of the rolling surge waves. Yeah. Armpit deep. Let me take a peek at something here, shall we? Now, if you were a small child, you'd be armpit deep. And granted, the WebBot didn't say what size human would be armpit deep, and I'm not even going to say here that, oh my God, it was spot on perfect prediction based off of all the information. in the WebBot report saying what to look for. But as I showed you the other day, and I used the Occupy Wall Street movement to show you what I was talking about, and the report was showing in advance people would be trapped in some kind of netting, and there would be beheadings, looks like maybe accidental, related to that. There were no beheadings related to Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street, but there was in fact a massive, made mainstream media news capturing of these people, innocent bystanders, in this yellow netting and couldn't get away and got pepper sprayed or tear gassed or something. And I think they sued and won, but it made headlines, etc. And then while that was happening, in Mexico, pretty much simultaneously, beheadings of an epic proportion were taking place, I believe, on people who were trying to rat out the cartels, or one cartel was trying to take over turf another one, and they cut some heads off of some people, including some women. So it was in the news at the same time. And I mentioned that's why you can't say WebBot is absolutely perfect every single time. It got 2 news stories correct and said the timing was also correct, but thought they would be related. That it would be Occupy Wall Street, people accidentally beheading there in some kind of net incident. That's still truly remarkable for a piece of software to do this. And here we have these shots of epic flooding on a highway in Bakersfield, California, due to this crazy rainstorm that came down and caused flash flooding. Let's read this piece again. Go back down to my this one. In the midst of the media system failure, the continent bears the brunt of several superstorms. The flooding and the temperatures are showing as being horrifically cold and armpit deep in the streets for the flooding, which is both from storm surge and massive, truly massive, unseen before levels of rain arriving ahead of the what they call rolling surge waves. Let's see what else we can find. The data sets are describing streets that are so flooded that boats are needed to navigate, and that they will be floating at 2nd story or higher levels. Now, I'm going to tell you that this little flooding story I'm sharing with you and showing you the pictures of it's a WebBot hit, but you ain't seen nothing yet. Baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. And it's not going to be pretty. It's something you're never going to forget. So let's just continue on real briefly. Immediacy data has been accruing for variations on flood as a linguistic. This is to say that the data has variants of flood in many different areas. So there are flooded by refugees and rising waters, pressures of potential floods, and other language of flooded streets and disrupted schools due to floods. Now, if I may suggest, or, well, no need to suggest, there's language. Let me get my ugly face off of here. Stand by. Let me put this on top of me. The immediacy data has been accruing for variations on flood as a linguistic. This is to say the data has variants of flood in many different areas there. So there's also flooded by refugees while flooding water around the same time. And I'm reading stuff today as I'm doing this video. And just for instance, I think it's still on Godlike Productions. Maybe. From 1.5 million, soon to be 7.35 million, family reunification of refugees taking place. Okay? 1.5 to 7. That would be a flooding of immigrants, I would say. This, again, for a piece of software, and let me explain to you, and if I don't explain this right, Cliff High, go ahead and punch my mouth loose through an email somehow. Through the screen. Bam! But I'm going to explain how the WebBot works. case there's anyone out there who really doesn't understand what the theory behind how it works. And I've heard so many Cliff High interviews, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get this right, and he's not going to punch my mouth loose through the computer screen. Virtual mouth punching. It scours the internet by just like Google or any search engine finds a web page, and then there's links on web pages that may reference other web pages, so then it follows those links, and those links may link somewhere else, then it follows those links. So it's spiders, right? It sends out the spiders, following every piece of web link, hyperlink to other sites you can imagine. Although I'm certain Cliff High has kind of a whitelist or blacklist in that he doesn't even want to bother sending his spiders to certain types of sources. I'm certain of that, because he's mentioned it. So these spiders go out and, just like a search engine, grabs the content of a page so that when you search on that search engine for something that is in that content, they want that page to show up. And of course, in the search engine world, it depends on how many other people are linking to that website to give it authority. That way, when you search for it, that site comes up first, in a nutshell. So WebBot is similar in nature, not that it has to have votes, but it looks at not just any keyword, but it's looking for what I think he calls high emotional sum words. And in layman's terms, it's looking for words. He's got it programmed to look, again, all throughout the internet, for certain high profile or not normally used keywords that we would use in normal day-to-day language. So when you and I, we look at our life of a week to a month to 2 months out, it's almost, maybe even 100% possibly identical. The next week, I go to work on Monday to Friday, Saturday, okay, same thing, come home, blah, blah, blah. I go to the grocery store, I talk to the same people I normally talk to, right? You're generally using the same words, the same kind of conversations. Again, generally speaking, there's nothing highly emotional about your speech. It's just normal day-to-day stuff. Then all of a sudden, just picture this, a meteor strikes down, small one, causes some severe damage, but strikes near your house. That's completely out of the ordinary. The language that you will now be speaking to friends, family, maybe posting on Facebook, blogs, whatever. Oh my God, it was right next to my house. It broke the windows out and fireball. You're going to start using words you don't normally use. You're excited. Different words are coming out of your mouth than normal. Those are the words WebBot is highly interested in gathering. Not the day-to-day crap. Nope, get out of here. So it then says, well, I found that on this particular website, for instance. Oh, I found that same word, because it's going to look at the word, take a snapshot of a sentence or two or three, I'm not sure, before the word, and the same thing after the word. So the next sentence or two, we want to see what was being talked about with that word there. Or I say we, he, or his WebBot, and then it stores it. Oh, we found a similar hit on a whole different website, maybe even in a completely different language, Russia, Chinese, whatever. But if you converted it to English, it's actually almost the same thing. We want to store that too. And the next thing he knows, he has all these values. Okay, that only came in once or twice. Whatever. This one came in 75 times. Highly emotional value, a word that's not normally used in normal conversation. We want to check that out. It sends him his report. He looks at the report and he interprets it to say, this is what I think is going to happen, based off of that in a nutshell. I find it, because again, I'm an IT guy. I'm a director of IT at a local place here. I do programming too. I know about SQL Server databases, and he's a guru, I believe, in SQL. But, this kind of stuff, just technology and tech, I'm fascinated by it. And for a freaking program that he wrote to come out and say stuff like this, and then crap happens that you can say, oh my God, that's either a hell of a coincidence or there's something going on here. That's really neat. And again, he never said this is going to be perfect. Every interpretation I give will be spot on. It'll be right or flat out wrong. Never happened. No. It's a tool that was new. It's new because no one's ever done this before. Yes, he's been doing it for years. But in the sense, no one else has anything like this. So I see this, and it's just, again, it's mind-boggling to see that. This flash flood that you've never seen something like this in California, just spur of the moment like this, and it just, what happened to the drought? What happened to the epic, crazy drought? And then all of a sudden, boom! And simultaneously flooding of immigrants into other countries. As I just read you. It's going to be around the same time. It's just right there. Black and white. Let's continue for a second. Got that. That. Next one. Same one? No, looks a little different. The Amusi data has been accruing for variations on flood as a linguistic. This is to say the data has variants of flood in many different areas. So there are flooded by refugees and rising waters or pressures of potential floods. So there's that piece again. In other language of flooded streets and disrupted schools due to floods. So go next. Other areas with floods as a base language includes the markets entity, especially the retail side of the gold and silver language. This also includes Bitcoin. Though in this case, the language is about a restricted flood of demand that is forcing prices, especially in the Chinese currency, renminbi, upward globally. The data sets are, in the instances of the markets entity, focusing on the real impact of supply versus demand, etc. So next thing down here, other floods areas included flooded infrastructure as the systemic crisis unfolds and further pressures of system demand are felt by the welfare state. There are also references to floods of demands for services within healthcare and social services, including food support, that are showing as encountering brick walls of no response or silence. So anyways, speaking of which, let me go back to my fake studio if you don't mind. Just in case you want, let me see what we got here. In case you were curious about ye old green screen. That's what's behind me. And behind that is my laundry stuff, laundry, washer, dryer, and other stuff. So we don't want to show that. We're going to get rid of that. So, I mean, again, it's just fascinating. It's so fascinating to see this. And you have to understand, this same tool, known as the WebBot, so many years ago and has not changed its view, which is not really a view, it's just data reporting back on precious metals, and saying for so long ago as the language for death of the dollar was coming out. That language was in the WebBot so long ago, it would have been absurd for anyone to come out on any financial news outlet, media, anything, and even suggest such a thing was right around the corner. WebBot, every report I remember reading, it was something in there about that's coming. WebBot, yep, coming, death of dollar, etc. So it's here now, live and in your face, as you can see. And the other thing it talked about was unprecedented prices for precious metals, specifically gold and silver. And only in recent, or I say recent, but a year or two possibly out, had it mentioned Bitcoin as kind of put in that same boat as gold and silver, where it's going to go crazy too. High prices, like it did at one point, was over $1,000. And he had mentioned not too long ago that when we see Bitcoin start to creep around, I want to say $400, if I recall, 3 something or 4. I think it was 400. Or maybe the target was 408, something like that. That would be somehow tied in with, like in other words, like a precursor. Get ready for, silver to kind of make a move. Where is my Bitcoin thing? I just wanted to see what the price was real quick because it was up. It made quite a move up recently. Bitcoin checker. 268. It's been hovering lower than 250 for a while. 268 is where it's at right at this second. So a far cry from 400, but keep in mind that sucker jumped to over 1,000, like 1,200, I think. And he's saying it's going to make a big move too. But for all I'm concerned with, to be honest with you, is precious metals. All my eggs are in that basket. I have a teeny tiny egg, if you will, in Bitcoin, which I kind of share with a guy that we mined Bitcoin and other coins and converted to Bitcoins a while back, and they're just sitting in my fake online digital wallet, which actually is on my computer at work, it's on my computer here. Should anything fail, got to have that digital wallet so I can always restore it should a problem happen. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you. It's just incredible, and I'm thinking these crazy $600+ amounts you might see for silver, Webbot's talking about long ago. And then you look at how leveraged these paper markets are just to keep the damn price down. Over 200 to 1. I think silver might be worse than gold. Gold's over 200 to 1, or roughly around there. You know, paper contracts versus the real thing that should be there. And then you have this other story, which I'll just mention briefly, if you don't mind, since I'm on the silver subject. Hang on. Maybe in Silver Doctors, I think it was. Hang on. Largest derivative player's head of regulation and compliance is out. What? Alert, largest derivatives player head of regulation and compliance is out. Bad news at the $70 trillion mega derivative holder, Deutsche Bank. Their chief compliance guru is leaving, and fast. And he was, Mr. Leitner was among current and former Deutsche Bank executives criticized earlier this year by Germany's financial watchdog BaFin for alleged failures to stop market manipulation and address address other cultural shortcomings at the bank. BaFin questioned whether Mr. Leitner was adequately forthcoming with regulators about traders' role in efforts to rig financial benchmarks. An interesting tidbit from Bloomberg says the lender plans to sell Postbank in Germany. It is also considering the sale of U.S. private client brokerage, a life insurance unit, and a $250 billion portfolio of credit default swaps. Oh, you mean those things that insure in these derivatives when they explode? Oh, those things. $250 billion portfolio in credit default swaps. People familiar with the matter said this month. So he says, bang, bang, bang. Now we know who the counterparty is on some of those Glencore and possibly Trafigura credit default swaps that are probably exploding as we speak. Remains to be seen, but boy, oh boy, you can feel it in the air. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh no. Oh yes, actually. Is it going to be next week? Right, the Back to the Future date, 10/21 or 10/23, whatever the hell it was. Marty McFly's coming back, and since there's an extreme amount of Illuminati and symbolism in that damn movie, with the whole entire all-seeing eye right on the hardware building with the number 911 on it as the car flies by, it's pretty interesting. And when you stop that scene and actually pause it, it is the dollar bill triangle all-seeing eye like you have in your back pocket. For that to be just thrown in for fun in a movie that are run by the Jewish elite, as usual with all these movies that have hidden symbolism, I find it interesting that they chose, again, October 21st or 23rd, whatever it was in the movie, of 2015. Remains to be seen. But that's all I got for you right now. Interesting times indeed.